All right, welcome everybody that's tuning in, and then those that are also watching this later. We appreciate the continued support in our videos here, and I know this has just been a great way to stay connected, bringing on people that are advocates of recovery, that are in recovery themselves, and especially those that are in the state of Wisconsin here that are offering recovery support services and just ways that they can give back in their community. So we appreciate you guys tuning in here. So my name is Wes Van Epps. I am an outreach specialist here at Wisconsin Voices for Recovery. And I'm also joined here today by some of my coworkers. Looks like we have Jessica Geschke here with us, Megan Solakowski, and Monte Ball. So like I said, we appreciate you guys joining us. For those that are new to this or those that are watching it for the first time, like I said, it's just a way to stay connected, get information about recovery services. If you have any questions after watching this video, feel free to reach out to us here. And if you have any questions specific to our guests, they will provide contact information at the end of this. So welcome. Today we have an amazing guest here that we've known for quite a while. So Mandy Suthers. So Mandy is a certified recovery coach and trainer of the CCAR model. So Mandy is the founder and chief executive director at Darjune Recovery Community Center and Services, and the lead for the ED2Recovery Plus in Brown County. She is a person in long-term recovery who recently celebrated her 9th year of sobriety. So congratulations, Mandy. Mandy has a degree in human services management and addiction counseling. She is the director of the Recovery Coaching State Network. Mandy is a member of the Wisconsin Voices for Recovery Advisory Council, the Wisconsin United We Can, Worldwide United We Can, Brown County Alcohol Drug Task Force, the Mental Health Task Force, Stop Heroin Now, and volunteers her time at many local organizations to help those with substance use disorder. So Mandy, I'm going to bring you on camera here now. If you can, I went through your bio here that we have for you, but could you just expand a little bit more maybe about your history and kind of the passions that drove you to wanting to work in the field of recovery?
So I was one of those people that got sent to treatment and really didn't believe in getting sober. I did not want to get sober. I wanted to go to prison. A judge had other ideas and sent me to treatment for a year instead of putting me in a prison cell. Which is probably the best decision he could have made. I had 5 DUIs in our county. I was dabbling with a little bit of selling, not like it is now. It was more pills and little stuff out of my bar. And I was a basket case mess and didn't believe in recovery, probably because I didn't like myself. Like, I just didn't want to be around, right? And I went to an amazing treatment center in Florida with owners that were very much peer oriented, more so than I'm your counselor. And everybody that worked there was in recovery of some form, whether it be family members of or in recovery themselves. They worked with harm reduction, multiple pathways. They didn't do everything specific to one person. Everything was person-centered. And I was given a lot of chances at that treatment center. I should have been kicked out 10 times. And they kept saying, there's this motto that you're not supposed to work harder than somebody else. But they worked harder than I did at my recovery, and I guess it paid off. So I guess I will never, ever believe that statement because I did not want to get sober. What got me into this field a little bit was I didn't really know what to do with myself. I sold a little bit of drugs and owned a really bad bar. I didn't know life besides that. I didn't know what to do with my life. And when a judge let me out of a courtroom and said, here's your felony, here's everything you have to do, but I'm not going to send you to prison, even though I should, don't prove me wrong. I'd had that old bar and it was, pretty much vacant. And what am I supposed to do with it? And one of the head nurses at my treatment center had passed away. She asphyxiated on alcohol when I left treatment, and I looked up to her a lot. And she was found dead, and she had 12 years clean when she relapsed and died. And she had always told me to open a community center. And I think partially I did it to make an amends to Brown County and the judge. And then partially losing her was a huge push into doing that. It was my, homework assignment. It really honestly wasn't supposed to happen, and it did. What kept me in it was I'd see people come in all the time and they couldn't get help. Like, they couldn't get treatment. They couldn't get detox. I'd have a ton of people getting off heroin that were coming to the cafe that had nowhere to go, and I'd watch them go through the withdrawal nonstop. And I never did heroin, but it looked painful. And a lot of us started just having a heart for that, letting people just hang out at the cafe with no money and nothing, and just providing CCAR recovery coaching, because that's what we had at the time, to help these guys. And we started seeing some miracles come out of that. And then I started seeing more miracles come out of that. And then I started seeing a community come together within Brown County where cops, like I didn't have to be scared of the cops anymore. Like, I was working with them, and the trust that they had in me having a felony was pretty amazing. So we'd have cops come over to the deck of the cafe and just drop people off. They had nowhere to bring them. And we put tents. I mean, we had a tent on the deck that cops would put people in. So when we came in to open in the morning, we'd know to help them. And there was a different respect level, I think, with people coming into the cafe, because now we're not POs, we're not counselors, we're not this, we're not that. We're addicts in recovery trying to help other addicts, right? And I think that the progress that was made was due to that. So getting more in depth with this, obviously, like, when you see a couple miracles happen and you know that something you created is the root of that, like, you're going to start sleep, eating, breathing it. It's going to be your life work. It's going to be your passion. When we opened our first sober living house, I wanted to make sure it was different than everything else, that we were that place that gave third chances, second chances if we had to. And seeing some of the miracles that came out of that sober living house program just the first year really helped me stay in this,
Great. Do you think I know you just mentioned it now, could you give us a little background of your sober living homes and kind of the recovery support services that you offer around your sober livings, and even maybe just a little bit about Darjune itself and what you guys kind of build off of your mission there, and what services that you provide in the community?
Okay, so originally I opened a community center where everybody was just supposed to hang out, and like, we could just start meetings whenever we wanted it. It's not a place that was going to close, that people would come for support. In the beginning of Darjune, we put a coffee can out on the counter, and there was a suggestion box. Every suggestion that anyone had ever put in there built Darjune. So we didn't actually build it. The people in recovery built it. And we took those suggestions and we kept building. Two of the most popular suggestions were, we can't get treatment, we just really just want somebody to help us. So that's when I found CCAR recovery coaching. So then we went with that, because we had to find a way to sustain. I'll tell you, we never sustained that community center. And then the second thing was, we wished our Darjune had houses. Like, we wish we didn't have to wait 30 days to go to a sober living program if we were sober. We want somewhere, if we decide to get sober, we can just go to now, and that if we screw up, people understand, because we don't want to die. And I accidentally ADHD on the news was like, oh, I wish we had a house, and didn't even realize I said it. And they put that on the news. Next thing I know, 2 weeks later, Resurrection Lutheran Church had called, and one of my former president, Anthony and Nelson, had said, hey, I know these people, they saw your news, they're going to let you have a house. And I'm like, what? So that was a complete, like, oops, just like Darjune, that happened. And I didn't know what to do. So I turned to Apricity, and I went to Michelle, who's been an amazing mentor to me. And I said, Michelle, I have this opportunity at a house. What do I do? And she's like, well, you don't really want to screw that up, So she said, hey, listen, I'll just have Amy get you the paperwork, and why don't you try to build off of that? And so at least you have something, to go on. So we initially, Darjune, Apricity really helped us get Darjune started with sober living. I was nervous about it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to take the risk on very much, but I also knew that we had 3 girls coming to the cafe that really needed a house at the time, and housing. So after the first 6 months, Paula Jolly and I kind of, talked a little bit about it, and we decided, hey, it might be a good idea to just start doing it off the streets. because we had people that really needed a bed, and we wanted to make sure, like, if we have the Oxford models and the other models, that at least we can maybe be that structure that we put somebody in a bed, and then let's say in 30 to 60, they're doing really well. They can then just go over to the Santa Fe house or the other Oxford houses. And then that created, do we even have a time limit on sober living? So we had to put a time limit in. So the board of directors wanted a 1 year, and then we reassessed with our counselor. So that's kind of the history of how that sober living house started. What ended up being more houses was, so obviously I'm in recovery and I'm sick of burying my friends. Like, it's getting really old. And right now it's just getting really old. And Paula Jolly was our former housing supervisor and was with this in the mix. And both of us have a bleeding heart. And so when you put two people together with a bleeding heart that want to help people, we just, I guess, the more we had a wait list, we just kept buying more properties. And then I had to take a step back and listen to something that Michelle had said to me from Chrissy, like, don't get too big too quick. Disasters can happen, and you can't save everybody, and you can't, you can't overexpend yourself, because the bottom line is you just can't literally, like, house everyone. There's so many people that need housing right now. So I had to really rely on some things some mentors said to take a step back. We made a lot of mistakes in the beginning of sober living, a lot of mistakes. I can't say it was always the most ethical, and I can't say it was always the most orthodox, right, to what you're supposed to do or what society says you're supposed to do around it. But I'd like to think all the mistakes made have built an amazing program 4 years later. And it's an amazing program. And having Jennifer, our chief of operations, involved, we are that place. We give second chances. We absolutely do. We put relapse plans together for these guys. Some people were like, yeah, they're probably better in a prison cell, and we should call your PO. Some people were like, if they leave today, they're going to die. So I think sober living, you can't ever develop a perfect model, right? But everything that happens in these houses always contributes to developing it every year better and better and better. So we have a men's house, a women's house, and we have a women's respite. So if a girl relapses in our main house, what we typically would do is put them over at our women's respite for another 60 days to 6 months, working with Jennifer a lot, and then they can go back to the main house. And we're working on trying to do that with a guy's house right now. We have a vacant property right now that I really want to sell, but we're trying to figure out what to do with. We have a couple people in our sober living house that are ready to go to phase 3. We're thinking about turning it into a phase 3 house where we still search and urine analysis tests, provide services, but just kind of back off them a little bit. So it's always developing different. Like, I think every sober living house program has always got to change things every year to what's happening in the world.
Thanks, Mandy, for that. I get to ask you a question now, but okay. I have had the honor to work with you through the last, gosh, it seems like 10 years now, but in many different hats. And so one thing I can always say when talking about you is that, you said something that kind of resonated with me just now when you said, when you put people with bleeding hearts in this field, you want to help everyone. And I remember multiple conversations you and I have had over the years prior to my Wisconsin Voices hat, obviously running a nonprofit here in the state, where you would reach out and say, Jess, like, we need to get this person off the streets. We need to get this person in. And we would have these conversations about what to do when you have to kick someone out of sober living, right? Mm-hmm. They've broken a rule, or they've ended up using, in the home, or something has happened. And I think now in this era of COVID, I've seen it, within the nonprofit world of just this heightened need to get people off the street, and people who are being released early from our corrections systems, like they don't have places to go. And so we've been trying to fund people here and there and everywhere. But it puts people at a higher risk, and it puts you, right, as the sober home owner at a higher risk. What do you have, I guess, as a feeling towards that, or how do you navigate that now with COVID? And how are you doing and handling all that as a person in long-term recovery who sees the person struggling, and like, where do you draw that line?
So it's so hard right now with COVID. It's just so hard. Overdoses are higher. Everybody seems to be dying. There is a mix so badly of meth with fentanyl and heroin with fentanyl. People are not buying smart right now. They're going off survival and buying junk. And in the sober living world, I have seen more relapses in sober living during COVID than I have ever seen in doing this in years. It is hard to find long-term stability. People are out of work. People are scared. People's family members are getting COVID, so that freaks them out even more. They're losing family members. They're losing people to overdoses nonstop. You know, you get 10 people together that were using together in a county, and now 4 of them are dead. The other ones, some of them are going to stay sober, and some of them are going to go back out and react to that. Jennifer and I have been screening a lot more of the applications coming in. We're getting more applications from the jail systems now and the prison systems than we've ever done, and from the ORS program. And we really have to screen who's serious about sobriety and who's not. But it's hard to judge that, because addiction is a 4-second thing. You could be absolutely serious and go pick up tomorrow. We base it off of mental health. So that's what we're doing right now, is we will screen the mental health process, and we will say, and I rely on Jennifer a lot for this because she's our LPC, and I'll say, okay, here's the mental health diagnoses that the probation or parole or somebody had just called me with. And we will say, okay, that's, possibly too significant. Maybe they can go somewhere else. So we're trying to, I guess, screen by mental health. It's a hard world with COVID right now. It's hard in our grants. It's hard, with treatment centers. The quality of sobriety, I think everybody's getting right now, has decreased immensely. I just had an awesome phone call with one of the treatment centers here in the state yesterday in regards to that. And I said, do you feel like everything's just weird right now? And she was like, Mandy, I'm telling you, we're taking people into treatment that I just don't, she's like, we're putting them in, but then where's the seriousness, I think dealing with this right now, we are more forgiving, but we're not in a way. So we have a community of people to protect. Not only are we protecting the community of people from falling short in their own recovery if things go bad, but we're protecting houses from not getting COVID, which absolutely is a secondary to this now. So we've got to know everywhere they are. Anyone has a fever, we got to check that. Anyone has a sniffle, we have to check that. I think there's more pressure on them, having to question their every move lately. And it really has nothing to do with sobriety. It really has to do with COVID. So I can tell you right now, we could buy 5 more houses and still not have enough beds for the people that need them, because jails are releasing so bad right now in prisons.
Yeah, and I think, with our relationship with you, Mandy, and your organization, we've been pretty in the loop with just your sober living homes and how you've been able to navigate it through this time. So we just want to give you guys and your staff so much credit for still being able to offer the support that you guys are to people that are in need, especially during the time of COVID. With that, and with not only your sober living homes, but also the ED2Recovery Program, which I'd like to jump into a little bit here. So of course, I just want to congratulate you on another year here of receiving that grant. And if you could just talk a little bit about it too, with the ED2Recovery in Brown County, what this program means to your organization. I know that you've been a part of this program since its inception back in 2017. So you guys have been able to work closely, I know, with Bellin up in Brown County. So talk a little bit about that, about your experience with the the ED2 program, and then also the exciting news of you guys being able to offer support expanding to Dodge County.
So I always tell Jennifer, my main job is this grant and people in our houses, and don't they understand that my job is this grant? So the ED2 Recovery Grant is my baby. It's always been my baby. And I think the main reason for that grant being my baby is I fortunately, along with Safe Communities, I have gotten to watch this little speck of an idea that all of us helped out with grow into what it is today, and see how much help it's helping our state. It hands down is probably one of the most best programs I've seen created. And I absolutely love the program. I love that another thing is too, that you get to watch hospital systems believe in hope around addiction again, where there wasn't that hope prior to this grant. It's not, and I present along Laura Heaps, you know, and I've said this before, and Bonnie from, you know, I've said, it's not every day that you can walk into a hospital system as a nobody and say, listen, I have a felony. I have a great idea. Why don't you just sign on and let my felons run all over your hospital and save lives? I think it's a brilliant idea. And you actually get a hospital system to say, we absolutely 100% will support you in that. And yes. And just the miracle of that alone, it is what breathes this program. So when we started with Bellin, I was fortunate to have Laura as a mentor, but it still took a lot to get this hospital to buy into this. This was not like an overnight yes project. When we started this 4 years ago alongside Voices of Recovery, I remember Jeff struggling, you know, and Caroline trying to get hospitals convinced that, hey, this might help you guys out. So in that 4 years, you know, we proved ourselves to Bellin enough that in that first year, Bellin said, we're going to give you all locations, 32 locations. And then watching it be able to grow into HS. HS has been amazing too. And I was nervous about going into HSHS. I was like, they don't know me like Laura knows me. And here I sit, like I'm sitting here with a felony. I'm 9 years sober. I'm in recovery. But do they buy that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you always wonder because you've got that big F mark on that felony on your record. And to see the warm hearts to that is amazing. Our coaches, like the ED program over at Bellin, like we're so involved with that emergency room department that they'll ask, like they'll say, oh, your one coach was in here and I love him or I love her. And, you know, I've seen the doctors and the nurses ask for their background stories and, you know, tell them that they're proud of them. And in the last 4 years, we've absolutely become family to Bellin Health. It's nice that they have a trust level with us that I sometimes would say, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they rely on us to show up. You know, when they don't want to say no to somebody in a bed, they don't want to look at them. No nurse wants to say, or doctor, well, I can't get you into detox for heroin. We can't offer you any help. I'm sorry, you're just going to have to leave our emergency room. Nobody wants to do that. This program allows that they don't have to any longer, that we can go in and figure it out and work with them for a year. So I've seen the biggest thing about this program, besides the lives that are being saved, is I've seen the nursing staff and doctors come together like a family, and there's hope. Like, it's no longer we walk in a room and we don't see hope. We're here to do our medical stuff, and then you leave. We have patient voices with Bellin. We have a couple with HSHS we haven't started out to present or do anything yet with, which I'm hoping we can do soon. That one of our patient voices did beyond amazing, and she's been able to go back and actually present alongside me to Bellin. She's been able to share her story. She's been able to see the nurses that were in that room with her again as a woman that's absolutely in long-term sober recovery right now. And the nurses, you know, the two nurses and social worker cried. Like, they were in tears to see that this happened. And I think this grant, a big reason I love this grant is I'm an advocate, huge advocate in our state for recovery and for people, because I don't want to bury my friends. And this grant was the first thing that blew up in this state that started getting a lot of advocacy around it that started changing mindsets. And so we can't do anything in a system unless we change mindsets, right? So I'd like to think this grant actually changed the mindsets in this entire state. Every year mindsets keep changing. And hands down, this grant will probably be the reason that peer specialists and coaches are going to be billable soon.
Great. Thanks for talking about that, Mandy. And I know that, moving into this next year, you guys are, of course, going to be super busy with offering more services to other areas. So we're excited about that, and just those relationships that your organization is going to start forming to bring this service in other areas that are needed. So we're excited about that here at Wisconsin Voices for sure. I know that you touched a little bit on it, but maybe in just kind of one final question that I have for you, or it could be a question or just something that I'd like you to talk about a little bit is the importance of collaboration. So we think about collaboration, and you talked a lot about it with the ED2Recovery Program and working with hospitals and organizations in your community with that program specific. But I like to think about, and maybe you could talk a little bit about this too, is collaboration of other organizations across the state and how important it is for, organizations that provide peer support services, how important collaboration is with one another, especially during this time. And maybe you could just share a little bit about your experience with collaboration and how you value it, and how Darjune values collaboration.
So I learned a long time ago when I started working with Laura Belling that the relationships you have are the most important thing to you. And that if you don't have strong relationships, you're going to have a hard time saving lives and advocating, right? So in this world of worlds right now, there are enough people with substance use disorders to go around. You can never have enough houses right now, and you can never have enough counselors or programs. There are so many people struggling and relapsing and using. The most important thing about collaboration is we're all on the same page. So here's our page in this world. We don't want to bury people. We don't want to watch the tears fall out of mothers and significant others' eyes when you have to tell them that somebody is gone or the police investigators call. Thirdly, we have a bunch of people in recovery that want to be in this line of work. They may not want to be a counselor. They may not want to be a social worker. They may just want to do peer work and be able to share their lived life experience. So the way to keep them doing that is to give them a paycheck, right? And so that's the other thing all of us have in common is getting these guys paid and making sure they're okay and making sure they're self-care. Not one person can do that. It takes an entire army to change a state's mindset. And Wisconsin is very black and white. It's very conservative. You go somewhere like California or Florida, it's going to be a lot easier to change mindsets. So collaboration is the biggest thing that all organizations, especially now, have to work together, because it's going to take all of us to change that. It's going to take all of us to reduce usage between counselors, doctors, everybody in the state. It's going to take all of us to be able to keep the coaches, keep the peer specialists paid, keep them doing what they love, and to keep supporting and helping our hospital systems, our probation and parole who's stressed out. The cops are stressed out. Everybody is so stressed out right now. And we're the other link, right? The peer specialists. The lived life experience is that link, I think, to keeping that whole circle whole. So without collaborating with everyone, how are we going to keep a circle whole? I mean, everyone has to be on the same page right now. I've always said I wish we could get every organization in the state together for a meeting once a month, all the CEOs and chief of operations, and everybody puts their heads together to collaborate and change everything. Because we're supposed to be the voice of change, like people like you and I, Wes and Jess. We're supposed to be that not only voice for change, but we're supposed to be the voice for the voiceless. And that's our parents struggling that can't talk, and the people with substance use disorders that are really struggling that can't talk. Right? So all of us have to help out.
Yeah, and I think you did a great job explaining that, and especially during this time of disconnect, and especially people in recovery, and that's one big reason why we started this weekly, just bringing people on like yourself and just talking and sharing what's going on and what you believe in too, and the programs that are happening across the state and how people can stay connected during this time. So I think it's great to have you today, Mandy. I know that this time goes pretty quick every week for us when we bring on a guest, but I think you had a lot of great things to say. I would like to open this up if there's anybody on our team here that has any final comments or questions that I didn't cover today. I'll just open that up quick. If not, then if there's anything else, Mandy, that is, coming to this meeting today that you haven't shared yet, if there's any final comments that you want to talk about. If not, we can let you get going.
Nope, I'm just really excited to start doing some stuff over in Dodge County and Fond du Lac. We started in that area years back. And I'm really happy that we can start maybe doing some things over there, because I got some coaches over there that live over there that really would love to get to work. So
great. And yeah, I know that we'll be working with you closely, and I think we need to have a talk too about that and seeing how we can get things moving over there. So I'm excited about it.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Mandy, for joining us today, and thanks for everybody for the continued support. We will be back on again next week. So we have a couple awesome guests lined up here for the next few weeks. So feel free to tune in next week at 1 o'clock again. So thank you, Mandy, and you take care.
All right. Thanks a lot, Wes.
Bye, Mandy.
Bye, Jess.